Gareth.
What I'd like to ask is, to what extent you think this shift from a foreign policy which has, in fact, supported U.S. Power and wealth to a foreign policy that has the opposite effect is a function of the degree to which the military national security bureaucracy became such a powerful influence on U.S. national security policy that it began to drive the United States in the direction of a sort of permanent war situation. Could you address that, please? Thank you.
Bumper failed in his introduction, I think he did, to mention my new book coming out in August. Pick up your pencils. It's called The Limits of Power. You get the drift of what it's about, okay? August, Limits of Power. And I try to flesh out in greater detail that a response that I gave to Stephen as a preface to my talk. And I think that's part of it, okay? That after 1945, there developed a national security apparatus of considerable clout and influence. Stephen talked about that a bit. And the members, particularly the members at the top of that apparatus, I think, subscribed to a national security ideology that caused them to see the world in a particular way, and led Americans to increasingly believe that if a problem had a solution, it was likely to involve the use of military power. That therefore maintaining enormous reserves of military power was an essential aspect of the way we approached the world. And 9/11 just renewed this ideology in really unfortunate ways, and helps to explain, I think, the Iraq War. Having said that, it's not simply Washington that is the problem. I think that one of the reasons that the foreign policy of expansionism came not to serve our interests after roughly the 1960s had to do with a larger deterioration of our economic standing in the world. And there it seemed to me one points to two, I think, very important factors. And one has to do with the dependence on oil. We began importing oil, I think somewhere around 1949, 1950. The amounts were trivial. Certainly by the 1970s, it's driven home that our growing dependence on oil is problematic, that it constitutes a vulnerability. Much talk from President Nixon, President Carter. Frankly, every president, down to the current guy who bemoans the fact that we're addicted to oil. Much talk that we need to do something about that. We don't do anything about it. And frankly, don't blame Washington. Blame us. Really, the response to our ever-growing dependency. At this point now, we import something like 65% of the oil that we use. The response to ever-growing dependency is an ever greater determination to determine the course of events in the Persian Gulf through military action, direct or indirect. So I think that oil, energy, our unwillingness to acknowledge the implications of dependency also helps explain the problem. And the second thing has to do with our unwillingness to live within our means. I mean, the savings rate in our country now is 0, if not negative. You know? The balance of trade is now in the red, something on the order of $800 billion per year. National debt's now $9 trillion plus out of a, what, $13 trillion economy. I'm not making these facts up. Frankly, they're sort of scattered over op-ed pages and in senatorial speeches on a daily basis. And they have absolutely no political purchase. I mean, any candidate for national office, you know, if Obama stands up tomorrow and says that, you know, by God, the budget will balance no matter what taxes it takes or what cuts in entitlements, he's toast. Because we, I'm sorry to say, not necessarily you and me, but we the American people, are not willing to really face up to the contradictions that bedevil our economy. Matter of fact, this is where this whole bizarre infatuation with the presidency comes in. There is somehow this expectation that, gosh, if we can just elect the right guy in November, he's going to fix everything. It's nonsense. But that's what we have as a substitute for serious politics. That would be my answer to the question.
Andrew, we have time for one more question.
Thank you for that. It's really hot up here.
Yes,
sir.
This question is about national security, domestic police force, and how would it change in the next few years under your scenario of it? Would it be increased? Would it need to be increased, or could it be decreased?
This is probably one of the areas in which the Catholics and the Episcopalians would disagree a bit. Believe me, I hope and pray that I am a conscientious supporter of civil liberties. But I do think that the proper response to violent Islamic radicalism, which again is real, it's not a figment of our imagination, really lies in the realm of effective policing. I'd much rather have the intelligence services and the FBI and agencies of that type working the problem of Al-Qaeda than I would rather than having, you know, the United States Army invade some country on the other side of the world with the expectation that we're going to remake it into a liberal democracy. So I probably would, I have a feeling I would support a more robust police effort than many libertarians would be comfortable with. Thanks very much. I appreciate your kindness.
Andrew was right. I did fail in the introduction to mention Andrew's book, so let me make up for it a little bit. The Limits of Power, coming out in August.